Welcome to Off the Grid, a podcast for small business owners who want to leave social media without losing all their clients.
Let's go off the grid. Okay. Let's go off the grid. Okay. I know that you really want to put your phone away. Yeah. Let's go off the grid.
Hello, and welcome back to Off the Grid. I'm your host, Amelia Fruby, and today I am coming to you with a very special bonus episode and a very bad head cold, hence my voice. So I'm going to keep this intro short and sweet and tell you just how this episode came to be. I first met Jen Carrington through a mutual friend of ours, Amy Koretsky, who was on the podcast at the end of last year. And Jen was one of Amy's favorite business mentors and quickly became one of the people I most looked forward to hearing from in the online business space. I was able to have Jen on the podcast almost exactly a year ago now. And earlier this month, I shared an episode in the Clubhouse where I talked about how I was approaching the recession vibes in my own business. And Jen reached out to tell me that it really resonated with her and she'd been doing a lot of similar things. And she wondered if I might want to record just an open, honest, vulnerable conversation about how our businesses were faring in 2025 and how our nervous systems were coping in the process. Of course, it was an immediate yes for me, and we recorded this conversation Monday morning. It's coming out on Friday, so literally this week. And of course, after we recorded, I promptly got sick and then was finally able to put this together after a few days in bed nursing this cold that I have. So, dear listener, if you want to learn more about Jen, you can head to all the links in the show notes or listen back to her previous episode of Off the Grid. But today, we are just going to get right into it. In this conversation, we share exactly how much our revenue is down in 2025, the ways that we are diagnosing what might be not working in our marketing and our messaging, some of the steps we're taking next to stabilize our businesses during this period of economic instability, and honestly, just like all the feelings that come up along the way. If you're a US-based listener, I hope that this conversation can carry you through the upcoming holiday weekend, and I will be back next Wednesday with another brand new conversation. Also happening next Wednesday is our How to Run Your Creative Business During a Recession class. I talk about that a bit more in the episode, and you can learn more about it in the show notes. I truly hope you will sign up to join me there. It's happening May 28th at 12 p.m. Central Time. And if you're listening to this in the future and you missed the live date, I am thinking I will have a recording available for purchase as well. So head to the show notes, see how you can get in on that conversation. It's incredibly affordable. It's meant to support you. It's an opportunity for all of us to feel less alone in this chaotic and challenging year. And for now, me and my scratchy voice are going to sign off and dive right into this bonus episode of Season 6 of Off the Grid with the one and only Jen Carrington. Hi, Jen. Welcome back to Off the Grid.
I am so honored. This is my favorite podcast. I am delighted to be back.
How are you? Really?
2025, the past 10 weeks, I've been going through one of the worst flares of my chronic illness I've ever been going through. But the past week, my Aura ring has been your resilience is climbing. I did 13,000 steps yesterday. I did 10,000 steps the day before. And I'm getting through this. I'm coming back to myself. I feel like a human being again. So I'm good because my body is feeling stronger. And for that, I am so damn grateful because I just soak up the good days as much as I can.
And I think that's such a beautiful place to open this conversation about business, with the body, right? Because so often for me, business becomes this very intellectual endeavor. It's all in my head. It's all strategy. It's all ideas. And I think that one of my magical skills is the ability to execute an idea and make it real in the material world very quickly, very frequently. But I need my body to do that. I can think all day long, but to actually put something out and sell it and be with people through it, that does require my body, any business owner's body. And I think that's a nice place to start with. How are we doing? How is your business doing this year?
This is my 11th year of running my business, and this has been a strange year. This is the first time I've genuinely been what the fuck is going on? And it's weird because work-wise, my workload doesn't, I only work 8 to 10 hours a week, so I don't have like the biggest workload in the world. My workload doesn't feel any different, but my sales are feeling significantly different specifically for my group program than they were a year ago. And that is a lot to get your head around from two places. There's the financial fact of it. I'm thankfully in a place where I've got recurring revenue, I've got cash flow, like I'm not actually in any danger right now in this moment. It's the ego work of it. And I do not think of myself as someone with a big ego, but how it feels to adjust in your brain to, well, this usually sells really well and with ease and it's not doing so this year. How do I stop that not becoming a story about myself? Because that's the thing that's probably going to mess me up the most, I think.
Yeah, I love how you broke that down. There's like the financial aspect of sales slowing down, and then there's like the ego aspect of sales slowing down. And for both of us who are business owners who work with other small business owners and creatives, and, we're not running influencer model type businesses, but there is, I think, a sort of aspirational quality to some of the things we do, right? We're both out in public being like, here's how I run my business, and here's how I make it work, and here's the things I can show you or teach you or do with you to help you do that. And I think that what we're doing is very different than the sort of like icky income claim marketing. Like neither one of us is out here with a Stripe screenshot being like, look how much money I made and how much money you can make. Like that's not what we're doing at all. But I still think there is like a texture or a layer of our work that lives in that space of like, this is how I make it work. There's ego wrapped up in that. And then now we both get to grapple with, and it's not really working, maybe, ? So I'm so curious. Okay, when you say like sales have slowed down for your signature group program, are we talking about like by 10%, by half? Like how much have we slowed down?
Last year's launches, so good, so solid, all going great. This year's launches have been about a third of the amount of sales I usually get. And for that drop off to have been so significant, which has been like mentally, egotistically, like a big financially, I feel pretty safe right now because of the ways my business is built up. But it's that feeling of like, why is what was working no longer working? What is going wrong? What the whole spiral your brain goes to. But yeah, that is concrete wise about 2/3 less than I usually make from that program so far this year.
Yeah. Which is a big drop. I'm curious, when you say like what was working isn't working, what have you been doing that you're like, oh, this used to always guarantee the number of sales I'm looking for, and then this year it's led to only a third of the previous sales?
I think looking at my business, I have not poured into any form of audience growth for years. In terms of, I built my audience 12 years ago, and then I've done things over the years that have helped me reach people, but I don't have a massive email list. My email list doesn't grow by massive numbers every year, but my flagship group program is a lifetime group program. So people join, they pay once, and then they have access to it forever. So I basically think what has happened is all my hell yes people have joined that program. And basically I think what has happened in my business this year is that two things have collided at the same time. Weird economic times where I think it's a bigger decision for a lot of people to make investments, number one. And number two, my marketing engine is basically like, well, you've sold to all your hell yes people, Jen, and you haven't welcomed any new people in. Because it's kind of like a grieving process of like, well, this program used to sell with ease and now I've had 2 slower launches. And then you kind of have a few days where you feel sorry for yourself and you're like, well, this isn't fair. Why isn't it selling how I want it to sell?
Yeah.
And then I was like, well, you wrote the sales page in 2022 and you haven't updated it once. And maybe the way you position something in 2022 and now you've lived in the program, like maybe you could actually just sit down for an afternoon and put some effort into just writing the sales page for the world of 2025 when you have more insight now into how this program works. And maybe you can now be like, you know what? I just need to do some audience growth. I'm going to need to reach some new people, because I think it's an interesting thing when something stops selling as well as it usually does, but the offering itself is still thriving. Like members love it. The testimonials are amazing. So I'm like, well, the program's great. And the people who have joined this year, perfect fits, are really excited to be in the program. So then you have to look at it and be like, you have to make sure that you're not solving the wrong problem, I think, because I think it would be really easy to be like, well, it's not selling, so I just need to burn it all down. No. You have to look at the business strategically and be like, what's the leaky bucket here? And for me, it's like, well, yeah, Jen, you've not reached any new people in years and you've coasted on that because you didn't need to. But now all your hell yes people are in the program. And I think for anyone listening to this who is maybe experiencing slower sales this year, when we're freaking out, we can't solve the problem. And I think the thing that I found grounding this year is to be, because basically my first launch was slower in January, but I didn't do any like warm up for that launch. I didn't do any pre-marketing. And I was like, oh, maybe, the world right now just needs a bit more marketing going into a launch. So I went and did this big pre-marketing push going into this launch, but the launch didn't improve on sales numbers. And that was the wake up call of like, not even just identify the leaky bucket, but accept the leaky bucket, because I did not want that to be the answer. I did not want the answer to be, you need to go take up some more space. I did not want that to be the answer. So I think anyone listening, if things have slowed down, it's like we have to strategically work out what the leaky bucket is, even if it's not the answer we want, because if we can't identify that, we can't then start solving the problem.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the last things you said that is always really important to me is like, if one launch doesn't go as you hope or expect, that's not yet a pattern. That is like a discrete experiment, and we probably need to try something again, maybe with some adjustments. Like you said, you were like, okay, this didn't go how I wanted. Let me try to add some pre-marketing and see if that will make the launch go better. But it wasn't until after the second launch where you're like, okay, now we at least have 2 data points of this not going as well. And now I'm going to make some more substantial changes. Like now I think, as you put it, like there's definitely a leaky bucket somewhere. It's not just that something that like a few more emails might resolve for me. And so I do think your self-reflection on like, okay, I have not strategically or intentionally done as much audience growth. But I also want to give you some credit, because your version of like coasting, like because you have such great biz friend relationships, I think even your version of coasting has been doing things like being a guest on Off the Grid, having a very successful podcast with another friend of yours. Like those things are growth endeavors. And you've just been able to do them in this sort of way where like when they pop up naturally and feel good, they like kind of show up and everything's in flow. And I would agree. I think just the sort of like economic and just like cultural contraction of the moment we're in has meant that ease, I think, has just disappeared from a lot of our lives and our businesses this year.
Yeah. And I think it's just when business perhaps isn't going as well as you want it to, or as it usually does, it's really easy to be really mean to yourself and to really be like, blame yourself, to be like, well, I should have done more, or I should have done this. But here is the truth of it. I have done the best I can. I have a chronic illness. I have a young child. Like I could look back and be like, well, Jen, why weren't you solving this problem a year ago? The problem didn't massively exist a year ago. Everything was selling with ease in 2024. And I would say, honestly, it's really funny to me, since the election, that is what literally the election happened. Things just have just felt so different since November of last year, in terms of even with my business friends who aren't, some of my business friends are also having slowdowns in sales, some are not, but everyone is having a slowdown in open rates and click-through rates. Just general engagement seems to be down. And I think it's important not to be mean to yourself. And I think this is where like our business resilience is the word that keeps coming back to me, because you don't, and the thing when I really spiral, the thing I say to myself is, Jen, you did not get this far to only get this far. Like it may feel like, oh my God, what is going on in my business? But it's like, no, chill the hell out. Like I've been doing this for 11 years. I'm like, chill the hell out. You did not get this far to only get this far. One of my really good business friends said to me, she was like, this is not a breakdown, this is a breakthrough. She was like, this is going to be the best thing that's ever happened to you in your business, because it's going to force you to think creatively in ways that you haven't had to for so many years now. And you can let that breathe fresh life into your marketing without freaking out or feeling like I have to do all the things that I've always refused to do because they make me miserable. So yeah, anyone listening, and I imagine you probably tuned into this episode because you saw the title and you were like, okay, let's talk about it because business has been weird for you this year too. I think it's like, do not freak out because the minute you start to believe that you're a big failure and that you're doing something wrong and that all is doomed, that is when you just get stuck in fight or freeze. I mean, how's it? I know you shared a little bit on the Clubhouse episodes that softer sound sales have been like bookings. How is your nervous system doing with that right now in this moment?
I'm like, how many cups of coffee have I had today? How does that impact my anxiety? That's the in this exact moment answer. Okay, I do want to share from Softer Sounds perspective, and I will pull out all of everything I'm going through there in just 1 second. But I wanted to just maybe highlight like 2 things of what you just said as well. One is going way back to what you said about like having a sales page you haven't really rewritten since 2022. I was just reading a piece, I think by Michelle Mazur over the weekend, where she was basically saying like, We are no longer in the like 2019 era of like selling to empower people to like be their best selves and run their best business. Like we're back in like, how does your offering meet the fundamental needs of somebody's business or of them as a business owner and a human being? And that for me, I was like, oh, okay. I definitely, the process of being in business, starting my business, running my business has been such a process of like self-actualization for me, I would say, and like community development and interdependence and all of this. But it reminded me that some of my messaging needs to go back to like, this is how this thing I'm selling serves this exact problem you're having. And here is how that will help you do some really fundamental things like work within your capacity, make money you need to make. Like we're going back to like the real basics of that type of languaging. And it has me definitely thinking about how I'm selling this year and the messaging I'm using around my programs. And like you said, like if the program is working, if we go to the people who are in it with us and they're like, we love this, it has a lot to do with just like, how are we positioning it? What is the messaging around that? And how are we speaking to the moment? And I think that unfortunately or fortunately, like that is an advanced sales skill, right? Like that is something you improve at over time. And it's something that I feel like I'm learning every single day. And I will admit that when you shared your friend's advice to you, this is not a breakdown, it's a breakthrough, like my whole body like cringed. I was like, no. So I just share that to be honest. Like if anybody else had that.
Oh, I hated her at first. At first, I was like, screw you. I was like, you don't understand what I'm going through. Leave me alone.
Oof, yeah. I think it is very good mindset shifting work. And also, I'm always one of the first people to be like, not every business survives forever. I have talked to business owners who are being so deeply impacted by Trump's tariffs that like they are closing up shop. And it makes me so angry and so upset. And I just want to acknowledge it here because, the work we do that's primarily online, that can shift in format and price point in, exact ideal customer, like we have a lot of flexibility to move through that breakdown moment into that breakthrough moment. And not every business does, especially businesses that have like much higher material costs or are doing things like importing and exporting goods. Like not every business is going to make it through this year and this moment, which is also true of every year and every moment. But this is just like, I think, an acute moment for many of us. So I just want to acknowledge that and also say that you and I are here to talk about how we're like shifting our mindset and our practices for this year based on our online businesses and the things we're figuring out. So I wanted to put all of that on the table. And now that we're 20 minutes into this, I will talk about my business. Softer sounds this year. So I will openly say overall, my sales are down about 50% from where they were this time last year. Now that encompasses both sides of my business, the Softer Sounds podcast studio side and the off the grid side, because it's all rolled into one business. I like just look at my revenue at a high level, top level number. And if I'm looking at that in 2025, we're bringing about half of what we were in spring 2024, which has been uncomfortable, upsetting sometimes. Let me try to trace how I've related to those numbers over the course of this year. So I noticed numbers were low in January, but that's very typical for me. The Softer Sound side of the business, people just kind of take some time to get back to their podcast after the holidays. Like we were doing less editing, but that felt okay. And the off the grid side of the business was booming. I had like the biggest opening of the interweb I've ever had, which I attribute directly to the fact that this is January 2025. In December 2024, I was on the podcast We Can Do Hard Things, right? It's like the biggest visibility boost my business has ever gotten. So when I opened the doors to the interweb at the start of 2025, I brought in a bunch of people, I think like 30 people or something like that. It was the biggest membership launch I've ever had. And it wasn't even a launch. It was so low key. I put a dynamic ad on the podcast. I sent one email. It was like easy breezy sales open week. And that felt good. And I was like, cool, okay, maybe podcast editing is slow, but like this side of my business is really growing fast and I can kind of run with that. And then February was, I think, a somewhat better month. So I was like, okay, the year is going to get going. It's going to be fine. And then March, April, May, sales have just been at that, again, like 50% of what we were doing last year, both on the Softer Sound side. I would say the off the grid side is really helping boost, but it's no longer doing like those huge numbers. I think the biggest thing I've noticed is that it has felt much more challenging to get attention in people's inboxes Like you said, like the click-through and open rates are low right now. And I'm getting maybe more replies to my emails than ever and less opens than ever. So I'm like, okay, this is like really hitting for the people who it's hitting for. But for people whose attention I have not already kind of brought on board, they're like tuning out. I think their inboxes are very overwhelmed, or they are just overwhelmed and not looking at their emails. And so it's interesting for me. I've been experimenting with a bunch of different things with the interweb this year. And the thing I'm really sitting with that I noticed is like, I have a wait list for the interweb. It's had roughly 120 to 150 people on it all year. And they cycle through, like people buy and they go off of it, and then new people come onto it. And in February, March, and April, I would send like 2 emails to the wait list to be like, we're going to have an event in the next week or 2. Like, if you want to come in, join now. And I would consistently get like 6 to 8 sales from that. And then in May, I was like, okay, I would love to get like another boost of people in before the summer because we have a bunch of great events coming up. And I did like a 5 email campaign. Like, we opened the wait list. I like sent all these emails. I tried to speak to the moment. And I also offered free one-on-one sessions with me for people who signed up. And that campaign did not sell any more new membership spots than the previous months did with my 2 email blip. And that to me, I was like, oh, this is interesting. This is where I was really like, okay, there's a breakdown in attention and in this type of sales method. And I am not sure what else I'm going to do. What's going to come next?
Please, will you share that article with me that you said you read by, was it Michelle
Mazer? Yeah.
Everything you said there, I think is 100% what I've been feeling, and not just feeling, but accepting of like, okay, we're in a different time now. And I think it's very much true that like, because I sell to my hell yes people. So I talk in language and in invitations in a way that I assume that person's already 100% in, because that's my whole marketing methodology of like, I nurture, and then I put my lights on. And I really do not enjoy the conversation around tapping into pain points, creating urgency, even thinking as a human being as someone to convert. I'm not interested in that. And I've never had to or willing or looked at marketing in that way. But I think you were so right when you were saying what Michelle said, that we have to speak more clearly now to how will this offer actually change and improve your life, and not how it will feel to be in the offer, because that's what I love to talk about. This is how you'll feel when you're in the offer. But it's being like, no, because I'm seeing my friends who have pivoted like their sales pages a little bit, or their offerings to speak more to these, like, this is actually what the transformation is possible for you when you join this container. And they're having their best launches that they've had in a long time. So I think it's just, there's this big moment of accepting, like, I can keep doing things how I've always done things, but my business will die. Like, that will happen. Like, if I'm not willing to accept that just because this is what I'm 100% comfortable with, and this is what was worked for so well for all these years. And the thing is, I am not willing to change who I am. But, you know, I have a 4-year-old to feed, I have rent to pay. And so I think it's just accepting like, oh, I have to meet the moment where it is. And I have to accept that my like really chill human way of selling maybe isn't going to break through the noise with ease in the way it did when we didn't have the pure chaos and heartbreak that is happening in the world right now in this moment. But also, I think I'm still unwilling to do anything that doesn't feel like myself. So it's the question of, in what ways do I have to stretch myself? And in what ways do I have to continue to be completely and utterly myself? Because I don't want a successful, thriving business if I have to feel like I've had to become someone that I can't stomach to do so. And I think a lot of the marketing advice of like, so much of the marketing advice I see at the moment is like, right, you need to tap into people's urgency more. You need to tap into their pain points. You need to I am not interested. A lot of the marketing advice I see at the moment is like, be really specific. Tell them exactly the result they'll get from your offer. And I'm like, business is way too nuanced to promise someone a specific result. And so it's just, I don't know, it's this, I'm in this messy middle right now with it of like, how do my business not just die because I'm refusing not to evolve, but also I have to still feel like myself, or I'd really rather not do it if I can't be myself in the process. I don't know if you in any way relate to that.
Oh, 100,000 million%. I think that we're really in this moment where, in a certain sense, I do think it's very clarifying. I guess this is like the breakthrough side of it for me as well, of like, what are the things I'm willing to do and not do? And where are the places that perhaps I have not had to push myself or stretch myself, as you've said. And so I haven't, but I could. And that would feel okay. And that would be supportive. So for me, to give an example, like, I will never get back on social media. That's like a hard non-starter. If the options are my business shuts down or I get back on Instagram, I will close the business. Like, it's not going to happen. And it's so deeply misaligned with my values. It would be such a weird pivot. Can you imagine if I showed up on Off the Grid?
You changed the show to On the Grid. We're going to be on the grid now.
Oh my gosh. No, like, not happening. Never going to happen, friends. Don't worry. It's not coming. On the Grid is never coming from me. But I think that something that I don't do because I haven't had to is, like, I don't pitch myself to be a guest on podcasts. I run my own show and I say yes to things that come in, but I don't do any active outreach work. And that's something I've kind of considered for this summer is, like, if I'm noticing that I need a new, like, influx of people into the audience, can I put some effort into that? Being on podcasts is like a huge win for me. I love doing it. It's so easeful. And I don't necessarily love pitching, but it's fine. It's something I can do. It's totally aligned with everything else I do in my business, but I just haven't done it because it's not my favorite activity and I haven't had to do it. But it's exactly that sort of space you were speaking to, Jen, of, like, I can stretch myself and just do this. It's not like going way over the line of my integrity, like getting on Instagram again would be. It is adding a little bit of work to my plate, perhaps, but honestly, I can do that because I have less paid work to do because the business has slowed down a bit, right? So there is this, like, space that's opening up. And while I would really love to, like, use it to go take a nap and read a novel, which I do some days, like, one day a week, I could use it to send 2 podcast pitches. And over time, that could kind of help continue, like, the growth and the well-being of my business.
Yeah, and it's kind of looking at that like, okay, I can't control what is happening around me. I can't control the external factors, but the 3 choices that I'm sitting with right now is, number 1, mindset. Just don't freak out, because if I spiral and go into fight, flight, or freeze, I will not make intentional decisions. So there's a lot of mental work around, like, grounding myself, rooting into steadiness. It's interesting. Last year, I ran this little mini mastermind called, this is a tangent, forgive me in my brain, but I ran this little mini mastermind called Steady. And one of the calls was all focused on how we feel steady financially in our business. And one of the things that we really took away from that conversation is, like, real, true financial stability exists in community and relationships, not in our business. So I think there's a lot of mindset around, like, accepting that I am safe and bearing witness to the ways that I'm safe, but also accepting that when the world is in crisis, to put all the responsibility on yourself to solve this problem, it's too much for a human being to have on their shoulders. So kind of just being like, I'm safe right now in this moment and I've earned the right to trust myself. And I really, really appreciate what you said earlier, that there are some people right now whose business models are being obliterated by the economic decisions that governments are making. You and I, thankfully, are not in that position. So I will speak to what it's like to run an online business without those type of costs. But I'm like, I have everything I need to solve this roadblock. So that's the first one, the mental side of it. Then there's the marketing piece of it, which is like, okay, because I think in more stable economic times, I think we can coast with our marketing a little bit more. And so it's just like, okay, the marketing piece of it. And I'm the same as you. I have not ever pitched to a podcast. I think the first time I came on Off the Grid, maybe I reached out to you, I can't, but you're the only person I'm like, people used to invite me onto their podcast all the time and I'd say no because I didn't have energy. And now I'm like, please invite me again. I actually do want to come on your show.
Yes, listeners, invite Jen on your podcasts.
Please. But it's like, I have such an energetic block around pitching myself. And I'm like, you know what, Jen, let's just, maybe after the summer, maybe that's something you're going to have to do, because some people just don't know you exist or that you're available. So there's the marketing piece of, like, what are some interesting, creative, aligned ways that I could reach some new hell yes people? And then the third piece is the business itself. And for me, I know the offer's not the problem. And for me, it's like, you need to write a new sales page, Jen, and you need to maybe consider fresh ways to, like, help your audience understand the magic of this program. Because if you keep telling them in the same way and it's not resonating with them, maybe just tell it them in a new, fresh way, Jen. Like, maybe just try something new. Because I don't want to believe the lie that there's no one left in my audience who's not interested in my offer. I think it's more taking the responsibility of, no, Jen, the way you're talking to them about your offer is not resonating with them the way it did with your hell yes people. And you've now got to be, and I think you spoke to it so true, that it's more advanced sales skills. And it's more advanced marketing skills. So those are the 3 buckets that I'm sitting with, of, like, the emotional nervous system regulation, the marketing piece of the puzzle, and then the business piece of the puzzle. Those are the three things that I can control and that I am in charge of. And that's what I'm focusing on. But the whole circle around all of that is like, I've got to feel steady and I've got to feel calm, and I'm not willing. I mean, I physically can't work more hours. I'm chronically ill. I'm a parent. Like, it has to still fit into my time, and I'm not willing to make myself ill or miserable in the pursuit of stabilizing my business again in this season. And I think that's just personally where I sit because of the realities of my health and being a mother. But I think it's just for anyone listening, if you're going through a tough time or like a tricky season in your business, us freaking out and being like throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks probably isn't actually going to be the thing that helps, even though that's what our nervous system wants us to do, just to feel some sense of safety and control.
Woof. You speak the truth. I think something that's coming up for me as you're saying that, and that I was trying to speak to earlier, but maybe can put in like more plain language now, is I just think what both of us have done when we notice things shifting this year is instead of like ramping up or freaking out, we like slow down. And we've like really done the work to stay regulated even through the shifts. And so like I had mentioned for you and for myself, like when January was slow or when your first launch was slow, we like didn't jump to doing a bunch of different stuff. We just kind of settled in. We're like, all right, we're along for the ride. We're going to keep going. We're going to keep working this out. And then we got more information. We're like, okay, we are going to have to pivot. We're going to have to change paths. We're going to have to do something different. Good to know. But like, we're not rushing. We're not moving with urgency. And I think that is important for cultivating the resilience you were speaking to earlier in our businesses. And at the same time, something I have been doing is trying to stay experimental. I have done a lot of different experiments in my business this year that I guess could look a little bit like throwing things at the wall and seeing what sticks, but energetically, that has not been my relationship to them. It's been very much like, okay, this is a spark that's kind of coming up. Let me just see if I can pop that up and just try it. I've been doing a lot of like MVP, minimum viable product stuff this year, right? So I launched a co-working club. I am now teaching like a one-off class, which I've never done in this way before. I've like been doing those different experiments to the interweb waitlist I talked about, right? Like I sold things a little differently each time. I'm feeling into like what's working and what's not working in that space. And I think that that's kind of how I'm getting through. And it's also how I'm staying connected to like my creative spirits because sometimes when I slow down, I get really bored, honestly. And I'm like, I hate this. Like the things aren't working. I'm trying not to be reactive. So I'm not doing a lot. And then I just like stagnate and I'm bored and I don't like it anymore anyway. So doing the experiments is helping me stay creatively engaged in my business. And I really do believe it will take me to like the things that make the most sense next based on like which experiments work the best.
I think our creativity is what gets us through this. I think if we freak out and we go listen to some kind of, I don't mean to sound disrespectful here, but like generic business expert who says like, right, use this formula or this funnel or this framework, that will ruin our businesses more than anything if we just stop sounding and feeling like ourselves. But I think our creativity to be like, okay, what's an interesting new way that I could create an MVP version of this product? Or what's an interesting way that I could talk about this product or bring fresh energy to this product? Something I did to myself was like, I don't want to run my business ever from a place of scarcity. So I've got this flagship group program that hasn't sold as well as it usually does this year. So the question I sat with was like, okay, you're going to be putting energy into doing more marketing for this program, but how can you also be like, how can I just delight this program even more? I was like, I want to make sure that my energy, a scarcity version of me would be so obsessed with like, how can I grow my email list and reach more people? And I was like, how can you stay in like a generous being of service energy? So I've planned like some cool little clubs to run inside the program. We're seeing the things that the members are struggling with and responding to that and creating. And I think it's just like if we go into a scarcity energy, and also I heard Nicole Antoinette say this, I don't know if it was on your podcast or another podcast, but I heard her say once, maybe last year, that she never wants to see the people in her audience as money. Like she never wants to see someone as a source of money. And that really put into words how I feel about like, I don't see people on my email list as people who like, well, you can buy from me one day. Like I don't ever want to get into that scarcity mindset where I then kind of dehumanize people's role in my marketing ecosystem. My goal has always been, whether you buy from me or not, I hope I leave your day a little bit better when you consume my content. I hope I delight you. I hope I support you. And so I think that creativity piece of like, if I can stay in that creative, explorative rooted energy, I think I'm going to make the better decisions for my business than if I go into scarcity mode. And then, like, for you, scarcity mode would be like, gotta get back on Instagram, or for me would be like, right, gotta burn the program down. And I think there's, I don't know if you feel this, for me, if I'm being honest, like, I freak out in the moment. Like, like last week, it was day one of my period and I was out with one of my best friends who's also a business owner, and I had a meltdown, and I was like, it's because it's day one of my cycle, and I'm just like, I'm having mini moments of meltdowns, but there's a deep sense of steadiness within me, because I'm like, 5 months of things not selling how they usually sell is not bigger data than 10 years of things being steady and thriving. And I have this deep trust of like, I will figure this out, but I will do it in a way that feels good to me and that feels stable to me. And it's interesting listening to you. I think you shared it in one of the Clubhouse episodes, the decisions you were making around your expenses, and kind of just, you kind of got these different options of, well, at this point I could cut my income down to this amount. Like, there's lots of choices you can make in your business to create a sense of stability in different ways as well. And also, I literally have a client who at the moment, one day her biggest retainer client about a month ago just dropped her, and her revenue just dropped completely. And we're now in a place where we're like, okay, let's thoughtfully, without freaking out, find a way to bring in the revenue that you're used to getting. And like, sometimes that happens. Like, literally one of my clients, the tariffs happened, and the pension the stocks that she was going to cash in to make a big life change dropped, and all her plans went out the window. Like, I just want to validate that some of you listen to this may actually feel in a financially scary place right now, and I don't want to dismiss that, because I have, like, my expenses, it costs me like £300 a month to run my business. Like, I have for a decade kept my expenses so low, and I'm like, well, I'm so glad I did that, because my expenses are low. But I'm the breadwinner for my family, so my living costs in terms of what I have to pay myself, because there's not another salary coming into the household, that's my big expense in terms of just like being my role as a breadwinner. But I guess what I'm saying is just validating, if you're listening to this and you are in a tricky financial situation, I don't want to dismiss that with what I'm about to say next. But I think if you're not in a tricky financial situation, there is an ability to really dig deep into your well of resilience and into your well of trust, and to just allow that creativity to lead the way instead of your fear.
Yeah, I think all of that is so real. And just to fill in some of the details around, because I think you're right. Like, we're having this sort of conversation that's like, sales are slow, but our business is still going. So I just want to be transparent and be like, what have I been doing? So some things that I've shifted this year, like, I have pulled all the money out of my profit account. And when money comes into my bank account, it's not like, I'm not doing any profit savings right now. I don't have enough cash flow to be banking profit for other projects or for the future. Now, in the past, I have saved quite a bit of money in my business. I have a very healthy tax savings account. I have a very healthy owner's compensation savings account. And so those are there for when there is not as much money to pay for my team expenses or my software expenses, which on the podcast side of my business, they're both high. Like, I have, multiple team members who are all contractors, but still working in the business every week and month. I have a lot of software that's needed to run a podcast studio. So like, that expense for me is typically around like $500 a month plus the team costs. So like, I have to keep maintaining all of that. And I have started pulling from my savings to do that. And then the other piece is, I've looked at like my salary. Like, I typically give myself a year-over-year raise of about 10%. And I might pull my raise back for this year. I've been kind of keeping an eye on, if I have to make like one more withdrawal from my savings account, I'm going to drop my salary. And that's possible for me because I also have a partner who works for a nonprofit, so not making the most money, but like, we don't have kids. We live in like a relatively low cost of living area. So we have more flexibility on the personal side of our finances than I know many people do. And so taking that like raise I gave myself back is not going to really deeply impact my life at day to day. Maybe it means I order takeout less or something, but like, it's not going to dip into my necessary expenses for me to do that. But those are some of the things I've been doing to make my business work, even though I'm bringing in less money. Jen, I'm curious, have you been like sort of making any cutbacks this year, or are you like running the business more off of savings? Like, how are you maintaining the business financially when your sales are down?
Yeah, so it's been a funny one because I have an extended payment plan for my group program. I haven't felt it yet because I still have all of last year's recurring revenue coming in. because it's now been 2 slower launches and a bunch of payment plans are about to tail off, it is about to hit my bank account from the end of this month that it will change things. Same as you, I've always kept a pretty healthy profit margin in the bank because this has always been my biggest fear. I've always like, well, what if the business slows down? And so there's a layer of that where there is, I pay myself the same thing every single month, but the way I always pay myself is whatever comes in goes into my like profit cash flow, and then I just pay myself, and it kind of evens itself out throughout the year that like some months I bring in more, some months I bring in less. It's really interesting going into this year. So I'm the breadwinner for my family. My husband is a podcast editor, but he has a tiny podcast editing workload. And he's mostly been a stay-at-home dad for the past 4.5 years. But last year, he decided that he wanted to make a career change to become a software developer. It's what he's always wanted to do. So at the end of the last 3 months of last year, he did a full-time like coding boot camp to retrain as a software developer. It was a crazy 3 months because I was like primary parent. He was doing this course and still editing. It was crazy. And then the plan all along this year, and we had to have a big discussion about this, was my husband just does not thrive as a self-employed person, not his thing. So his plan this year was to get a remote tech job. So there was this is why this has messed with my head a little bit, because this year the plan was always for Alex to get a remote tech job, and it would give me 2 options in my business. Either I keep earning what I earn and we just have more to save, or my plan going into this year anyway was once Alex got a job, my plan was to take a pay cut going into this year, because family planning, we are thinking, do we want to have a second child one day? And I wanted to be in a position to take the kind of maternity leave that I wanted to take. Now, Alex looking for a job in this economic climate is not happening as fast as we thought it would. So I am in this really weird limbo where the minute Alex gets to a job, I can literally reduce what I pay myself a month by a couple of £1,000s. So mentally, I'm in this weird limbo because I don't actually even know what to project that I need to earn for the rest of the year, because I'm hoping at some point soon he will have a job. I'll still be the breadwinner, but there will be then a salary coming into the house. So right now, it's been fine because my recurring revenue has covered my monthly salary. Because this last launch was not what I expected it to be, this is now when I'm having to make decisions. But the way I am filling in, obviously there is cash flow I will have to pull from I may have to pull a little bit from my like cash flow to pay my salary every month. But my plan is I never do a summer launch of my group program. I'm going to do a summer launch. I'm going to test out the changes that I think I'm going to make. And my hope is that I can fill in some of the income gap with an enrollment window that I don't usually do. But also, if I have to pull from my cash flow, that's what it's always been there for. I've just never really had to pull from it before. Talk to me in 6 months if things don't pick up. We'll see where I am. But as of right now, you know what I mean? Like there's always cash flow. Like you and I are in a place where we have cash flow. If the world keeps going to more and more shit and nothing picks up, I'm sure in 6 months, 12 months, we might feel very different. But as of right now, and also because I have other income streams, but yeah, it's really funny how this was the year that I was like, maybe I can take a pay cut this year because my husband's going to get a job. And then my business is like, well, hilarious, Jen, you're actually going to make less money than you usually make, but your husband's not going to get a job. So good luck with that.
Yeah, I also feel called out by the universe in the sense of like, I've been saying forever that I want to do like more with off the grid and less with softer sounds. And then this year that arrived and I was like, do I want this? Is it okay? Like, yeah, there's a little bit of like taking the medicine I asked for me in this, I think. But also, there's obviously a lot happening in the world that's creating those changes. And, you know, for me, like I haven't said this here yet, but I think one of the main reasons that Softer Sounds revenue has dropped so much is one, like the AI podcast tools have gotten significantly better. And I kind of spent the past 2 years being like, that's okay. It's not really going to impact me. And it absolutely is now. Like plenty of business owners who would have probably worked with me or tried to work with me or found a way to do that in the past, I think are editing their shows with Descript. And that's actually not just thinking. I do advising calls with them and lots of them are like, yeah, this tool is so great. It means I don't have to hire an editor, which I couldn't really afford to do. So that's not to critique anyone's choices, just to say like I am feeling that impact in my business. And I am seeing like I think that will only increase. So the things I heard you say that kind of flagged for me as potential takeaways for listeners is like, one, having long recurring payment plans can really help support a business through periods of economic instability. So often we might think like, oh, I'll do a payment plan for like financial accessibility or something like that. But also like it can help stabilize your business. There are a lot of benefits to a business in making that type of decision. So I love that you shared that. Also, the way that we both have business savings, and remembering that even though it can be really fun to imagine having a like Scrooge McDuck swimming in all the cash your business brought in moment, like actually a lot of that is like beneficial if it stays in the business, so that when there are more challenging times, it's there to keep the business going. I also think something we both do that's helping us out a lot is having that like set amount we pay ourselves each month. When I started my business, I was running a more strict profit first system. So I paid myself 50% of what came into the business in any given month. And it was a roller coaster. Like some months I was paying myself like $7,000 and some months I was paying myself $1,000. And that was not a good situation for me. And so what I shifted to was also this sort of corresponded with becoming a LLC and an S corp and all this other US tax stuff. But essentially I put myself on payroll and I have the same paycheck every month. And then if there's more money than that in the business, it goes into these different savings accounts, right? So I think that's also a big piece of it for both of us. But the other piece of that for me has been letting myself use the savings. And that I think circles all the way back to your first question to me, which was like, how's your nervous system right now? I can tell that part of the way I've like constructed my sense of safety in my business is sort of having these accounts that are always at a certain number. And as I start to pull from them, I definitely feel that activation and that stress and that like tightness and the shallow breathing that comes up. And I really do have to pull in all of my somatic practices to remind myself what I know to be true, which is that all of this money is here to flow through the business. These pools can't stagnate just by sitting there for years and years and years and years. And I have to trust that as they flow out, they will like flow back in. And that has really been the place where I think I get tested. I feel like all of the money work and the nervous system work I've done in my business has made me able to regulate through different amounts of revenue every month. But to watch the savings start to be pulled at is where I really start to get like panicked in a certain way.
It's just exact same for me because it's always made me feel safe. It's always been this like, oh, if the business ever slows down, that's what it's there for. And like, it's so nervous system activating. And I think it's okay. Like, it's okay that our nervous systems are activated. It's okay that our egos are activated. It's okay that our inner child are activated. Like, it's all okay because of course they would be. And I just think like, I'm just so glad that we're having this honest conversation because I think in this online business world, it's all about like, look how much money I've made and look how successful I've been and look how I'm doing. And it kind of people put a gap between look how successful I am and you're not successful. So buy from me so you can be just as successful as me too. And I think it's just, I hope for anyone listening that it's like, I've been doing this for 11 years. You've been doing this for what, 5, 6, 7?
I think I'm going into my 5th year.
Okay, so like lots of years that we have been doing this, paying ourselves, sustaining our lives. And it's like, yes, sometimes we have a slow few moments or things don't sell as they usually do. And you're not alone if you are going through that. And also and I think the AI of it all, I mean, I don't personally use like any AI tools. Like it's not something that's in my, I don't judge other people for using AI. It's not personally in my values system. I'm very uncomfortable about the environmental impacts, the whole damn thing of it. I'm not here for it. But I hear a lot of people now who say like, oh, I just use ChatGPT as my coach. And I'm like, what? And people are like, yeah, just coach it. And I'm like, are we all just going to have no jobs in a few years? But you know what?
Yes. My brain spirals in that way as well.
And because I can't control that, because my brain can't do anything. And even my husband is going into an industry now where it's like software developers was like a pretty like cushy job to go into. AI changing that too. Like everything's changing. But it's a case of like, if I feel strongly about not using AI and wanting to have human beings, I trust that my hell yes people are out there too and are also, a lot of this has to be trust. Also, I don't know if you can relate to this. Sometimes when I really spiral, I have to go into my Delulu energy. Like I have to just be in a place where I'm like, everything's fine. Everything's going to be okay. Because sometimes I just need to feel like once my inner child is triggered, that's when I have to treat myself with kid gloves and be like, everything's fine. Even like lie to myself like, oh, it's not that bad, Jen. Like the launches were fine. Don't worry about it. It's like,
yeah.
And that's okay if you have to go to that place too.
Yeah, absolutely. Like we're all trying to survive and run businesses in late stage capitalism. Like it's a delusional endeavor from the outset. Like us thinking that Western civilization is functioning, that's delusional in and of itself, right? So, so much of what you said just resonated so much with me. And I am also really grateful for this conversation. I want to wrap in one more piece that I just want your take on, and then we can both share a little bit about some of the offerings we have that are directly related to this conversation. But something else I've been seeing, I don't want to call anybody out here, but it's kind of been bugging me. I've been seeing some people sell in their email lists or as they launch in this way, where like they'll lead their sales emails with, people are telling you that we're in a recession, but we're not. Things are selling. I'm having the best launch of my life. And you can too, if you buy my thing. And I want to acknowledge that not every business is struggling right now. And that doesn't, like, it's fine. But I just find this messaging so sticky, tricky, icky. I don't like it. And I'm curious if you've seen any of it or if you have any thoughts about it.
I mean, any messaging ever like that is the biggest turnoff to me in terms of like anyone who promises you a financial outcome, I think, stop fucking lying to us all because you can't promise me anything. But anyone who is manipulating people's fear and real lived experiences right now by trying to gaslight them into believing that it's not really happening and that the problem is they just don't have the right strategy, it's disgusting, it's gross, I'm not here for it. And I to be honest, I don't think I see it, but I think that's mostly because I'm not on like any like marketing. I just don't engage with anything like that whatsoever. But I think in times like this, you will always have people who try and manipulate people's biggest fears. That will always happen. And I think this is the thing I keep reminding myself of. I think for businesses like yours and ours, ultimately, the true special source of what we do is that we're real people and we treat people like real people and we're very values-led businesses. And like, I don't know, this is why the whole ChatGPT and AI thing, I'm like, okay, you can go onto ChatGPT and ask it to, I don't know, I don't use it, but like coach you through a problem. But my clients say that they like the way I hold space for them and they like the way that I share my story with them and they like the way that I ask questions. Like nothing can take away what we do as individuals. And that is the thing. And I think it's the same with our marketing of like, okay, if you send a manipulative email like that, maybe it gets you more sales, but then it gets a bunch of nervous system activated people joining your program looking for you to be their savior. I don't want that type of energy in my business. But yeah, if I see something like that, same as you, I unsubscribe straight away because I don't exist to be manipulated by someone's desire to make 100,000 more pounds in their business that week.
It's such a frustrating thing to me. And I really liked what you said earlier, especially around like with the type of work we do, we can't guarantee any outcomes in a business environment. And so having that really nuanced approach, speaking to the real problems, the real needs that people have, but also like not promising a specific dollar amount on the other side of investing in our work. And that has been like in an ongoing way, very important for me. And, you know, I really tried to like empathize with those emails in the sense of like over the past 2 years, my business has been doing well. And I've been speaking to a lot of people whose businesses weren't, but I never messaged in that way. Like I always tried to meet people where they were at, even if their experience of business was very different than mine. And I am celebrating anybody whose business is doing well right now. I'm maybe just asking you not to like send an email gaslighting me about how my business is doing. Like if your business is great, hell yeah. Like I love that for you. And also it doesn't mean that you have the answer for me to like change my experience of my business right now. And buying your, you know, whatever launch course, email membership,
Funnels, whatever it is.
it's not going to necessarily like resolve the issues that I'm having in my business. So thank you for giving me your take on that because I have been needing to like vent about it, honestly. Okay. Anyway, at the very beginning of this conversation, I told everybody that you have a membership and then we proceeded to not talk about it for 50 minutes. But I would love to know, like, one, can you tell us about your membership? And then two, like, did you launch it as a sort of experiment to see if it solves some cash flow problems in your business? Like, where did it come from?
So actually, my membership is called The Messy Middle. I had this idea like this time last year for The Messy Middle, because basically what I do in my business is I call myself like a gentle business coach. And basically what my work specializes in, I help people build and run simple and spacious businesses. So I help people center their humanness in their work while still pursuing financial stability. And obviously I'm teaching people a lot of simple and spacious frameworks and all the nitty gritty of running a business. However, the thing over and over and over again that comes up, especially when I'm working with someone one-on-one, is the messy middle of holding themselves through feeling emotionally triggered by a situation, or feeling crushed after having a tricky client experience, or navigating economic instability. All the messy middle of the journey is what I see. People know how to run businesses, especially if you work with a coach or you join a program. The actual like marketing of it all and all of that, that is actually not that hard to learn if you choose the person that you want to learn from that resonates with you. But holding yourself through the experience of a great quarter, then a slow quarter, like the whole damn thing, that is I find over and over again that people's ability to hold themselves through the messy middle is where true, steady entrepreneurial spirit is born from. So this time last year, I had the idea for this program, but last year kicked my ass with my health. So I was like, I'm going to launch it next spring when I have capacity to do it. So it wasn't actually planned as anything to solve like a cash flow problem. And I did like a super chill like first launch, and it brought in a few thousand. I was like, well, that's nice. That kind of helps out that month to go back into the bank. But it's interesting now because I think having lower ticket offerings, if you tend to have higher ticket offerings, I think having lower ticket entry level offerings are great because they can bring in little. It always surprises me at the end of every year when I look over my business financials, how much of my revenue has been brought in by a few little lower ticket offerings all stacked up on top of each other, because I never think of them when I'm doing my financial projections for the year. So I think having like a lower ticket entry level offer is great because it brings in little doses of cash flow, but also it gives a lot of people the opportunity just to test the waters with you. And also it gives a lot of people who join the messy middle in the first launch, because I've only done one launch of it so far, said to me, I've wanted to join your simple and spacious business. I cannot afford it. I'm so excited to have a lower ticket way to work with you. So I didn't plan for it to come at a time when my business would benefit from a lower ticket offer. But now it does benefit. And I think the balance is, I don't know how you feel about this, is like, okay, I've got this high ticket group program, I've got this low ticket membership. How am I going to balance launching them throughout the year where I don't feel like I'm constantly launching and constantly selling? And like that's now the balance when you have multiple offers to sell. And also, how do you make it easy for someone to like know which one to go to between the two? Like that's where my head's at now, of like, how can I make it fun to sell multiple things? Because one-on-one I sell in quite a different energetic way, so it kind of doesn't fit into a launch cycle. But yeah, that's where my head's at now, of like, how do I launch these two without feeling like I'm constantly in launch mode, which is the nervous system of being in launch. I kind of feel like I'm done with it. I'm like, how can I make this feel better? Because this year has just not been fun whatsoever.
Yeah. Okay. I thank you for sharing with us about the membership. I have so many thoughts for you there. It's been interesting. Like, so in the off the grid space, for all of last year, I only had one offering. I had the interweb, I guess, for the first half of last year. Then I launched the Clubhouse, which is kind of different. I really wondered, like, is this just going to be all the same people? But there's not a ton of overlap. I think maybe like 50% of the people overlap between the two, but there are plenty of people in the Clubhouse who are not in the interweb, yourself included, right? And has a lot to do with like my peers who like to listen to me talk and be in conversation with me will come over to the Clubhouse. And you don't need to learn from me. Like, we can have a chat about business things. Like, you don't need to like come to my class, right? So it's been interesting just to see. So I've had those two offerings, but then this year I have been like selling, like I mentioned, all these experiments, right? Like doing a co-working club. I'm teaching this how to run your creative business during a recession class. And like all of that's new. And it's tested exactly what you're saying. Like, how do I sell different things at different times? How do I run these sales cycles, some of them like concurrently in a way that doesn't totally drain me? But the other thing that's been interesting is just selling the interweb to the waitlist this year and just not doing public launches so I can be selling these other things. So I'm so fascinated to see if like a year from now, you sell your simple and spacious business more on a waitlist model than like a 2-year full list model, because that is what immediately piqued for me when you were talking about that problem.
That is literally my plan. That is literally my plan so this summer launch that I'm going to do, I'm only going to sell to the waitlist and anyone who signs up for the pre-marketing that I'm doing for the launch. Because I also think I think my main list is fatigued on me selling them this same program for 3 years that I've sold with the same messaging for 3 years as well. Do you know what I mean? So I feel strongly that I want to move to more waitlist only for the big program and maybe only do 1 or 2 big public launches a year. And also sometimes, and I've watched you do this with the interwebs, my group program, there's no time when you have to join at that time. It's not like I have a cohort that starts and there's something specific. Like, you could join at any point throughout the year, but I have these launches and I'm like, what if I find a way to do this on Evergreen? I have a really good friend who has a membership that brings in like over 10K a month in terms of revenue for her. It's like her big standalone program. And she literally has a wait list that she sells to every single month, just to the wait list. And then she only does a big launch once or twice a year. And I was like, that looks nice. That looks really nice. And I'm like, I want to do that. So that is what I am going to start testing. And also it's like, it's kind of just accepting that, okay, the sales cycles that I did 22, 23, and 24 for this program worked with ease, met my sales goals every single year. It's okay if that's not the truth anymore. Like, it's like, I think sometimes in business when something's shifting, we like dig our heels in the sand a bit. You know, like we dig our feet in and I'm like, well, I don't want to change. I don't want to move with the times. And it's like, no, that's okay, because what if actually it's more fun for me to do this in a more calm way? So yes, the wait list, I'm moving to that because that sounds so much nicer for my nervous system. And also I think that's probably more effective for the people on our list who probably will only pay attention when we're in a full launch, but they haven't heard about it 5 times already that year.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I'm excited for you to have a new model. And, you know, I think the digging the heels in, like, yes, it's maybe that we don't want to change, but it's also right now, it's just like things are fucking hard. Like the world is very hard. And that sort of transformational, like excited to do new things energy is something that I'm having trouble like conjuring for myself. And I know that many, many other people are as well. So that's where it's kind of like, are there small steps we can take? Are there different types of offerings we can come up with? What can we feel excited about? And can we just follow that, even if it's not the quote unquote smartest idea or like the most lucrative business, whatever we could do that year? I think that letting our bodies lead and our energy lead is something that I'm always trying to work with. And I know you do as well in your business. And, you know, I'm teaching this class, I guess, next week when this comes out on May 28th. And it's been interesting to prepare the material. So the class is called How to Run Your Creative Business During a Recession or Any Slow Time. And there are kind of 3 parts that I think map nicely onto this conversation here. Like the first part of the class will be on like self-soothing techniques. Like how do we regulate? How do we help ourselves feel better? I cannot teach people like the deep work of healing your nervous system, but I can tap in with some self-soothing techniques for when we do start to spiral or feel that panicked activation. And then it's the sort of like contraction of like, okay, where can we pull back on our expenses? Where have we invested in things that maybe we put a pause on? Where have we grown our team and now our business just kind of needs to scale back? It needs to get smaller. It needs to become just us again, perhaps. There are different ways that we can figure out how to make things work as we kind of pull back in our business. But then the most exciting part for me to prep for has been the expansive moment. And so I've just been like I feel like a little squirrel. I've just been like running around to all my friends' businesses being like, what's the cute, cool thing you're doing? Oh, what's the fun, cool thing you're doing? Oh, well, this is really interesting. I've never seen anyone do that before. I'm just gathering it. And this class is basically going to be, it's a little bit of like 100 cool and interesting ideas of things to try in your business. That's kind of like what the end of it's going to become. And it really has fueled me to feel more excited and to remember that like, sometimes when things aren't working, I feel like I have to totally reinvent the wheel. And instead I'm like, what if I just taught a $25 class and see how that went? You know, and this class is not, I mean, I've made a few $100s off of it so far. Like it's not totally transforming my financial landscape, but it felt fun to do. I think still just like finding the creative energy to follow those things, as we've said over and over again in this conversation, and resourcing ourselves in all the ways we can to cultivate that resilience to, you know, make it through the next few years, because we really don't know what things will hold.
I think the way through is with community. Like, I think the way through is with our business friends and with the communities that we're part of. Like, I just think like we're not meant to do this. I think like, I'm so excited. I'm signed up for the workshop. I can't wait to see all like the different insights you've gathered, because that is like right now, when for me talking to my business besties and they're like, well, Jen, this is what's working for me right now. What's your version of that? Like, that is what's cracking open creative energy for me, not sitting in my room feeling stressed out. Like, I cannot get through this alone. I need to be in community with people so that I can crack open the different ways that I'm thinking about my business. And so I love that. I love that it's going to be, I'm so excited for this workshop.
Yeah, me too. Me too. And I think that like, this whole conversation is us trying to model that in public, right? And trying to collaborate in a sense where there's like a version of the world where it'd be very easy for us to be competitors and to not combine forces, right? Like there are plenty of my clients that are also your clients. There are plenty of people who may choose between like, am I going to join Amelia's membership or Jen's membership? But instead of having a sort of like competitive angle on that and one of us being like, well, I have to scoop all those people before they, I have to get people on the interweb before they go join the messy middle. Like that's just not the energy I'm interested in bringing. And I actually think it's much more interesting to tease out those nuances, right? Like if you're a listener who lives with a chronic illness or who is a parent, Jen's approach to business may work better for you because I don't know those things firsthand. That's not the framework that I bring. If you're a listener who's like, I need to get off of social media and that is like a priority for me, my membership and my work is probably going to resonate more for you right now, right? Like that's a focus of it. And similarly, like we have different price points on things, right? Like you have a course that is a lifetime course and brings in a lot of support. I have a low-cost annual membership. Like there are different ways we engage, different frames that we bring to the work, different firsthand experiences we can offer. And I think that in addition to that community, that collaboration, just like the specificity, like bringing the nuance to the table, being specific about who we are and what we can share and what we can teach and coach and advise through, I'm hopeful that that is also what's going to like lend to that resilience and like allow our businesses to keep growing. I like to say something I've been saying to myself lately is like, I love to be a generalist, but I'm not going to be generic. So I do a lot of stuff, but I'm not here just being like the generic, marketing podcast, business advisor, podcast studio, whatever. Like I do all of that because I love learning different skills, but it's rooted in so much specificity of who I am and who I'm for. And I want to hold on to that, even if it feels hard, even when I feel like it's tempting to be for everybody and apply that 10-step formula that promises that this funnel will make me 6 figures next month. Like those things are generic and I don't want to go that direction. So that's what I'm holding on to as we finish this conversation. Jen, what are you holding on to as we wrap up?
Honestly, that's the thing. The thing I keep asking myself is like, Jen, what are you assuming people already know that they don't actually know? I realize for me, my biggest, I think, marketing, not mistake, because I don't like using that word, but like I speak only to my hell yes people. I do not do a good job of and so I'm like, what am I assuming people already know? And what am I afraid to say over and over again? Because I think if I've said it once, I've said it a million times. And so the thing I'm holding on to right now is I didn't get this far to only get this far. I trust myself, but also it is okay for this to be a season 2. And the specificity, I come back to that a lot of like, I don't want to be like, join my program and you'll get this exact result in this exact time frame. That is so out of alignment. But how can I get more specific about the magic available inside my offerings in a way where I stop assuming that I assume people can read between the lines and like pick it up from this testimonial. And I'm like, no, how can you be a bit more bold and brave and take up space? Because actually that's a gift for someone like to feel safe to know what they're investing in. So yeah, a lot of mindset work, and a lot of trust, but also a lot of just like being more specific and being okay taking up more space. Like I think sometimes it's like I don't want to be specific because I don't want to like really take up space, because I'm just like, oh, you just decide for yourself if you want to buy from me or not. And it's like, no, take up some more space. But I think ultimately is, do not go it alone. Like I would have lost my mind over that last launch that went really slowly than usual if I hadn't have business besties that I could send voice notes to back and forth, because sometimes you just need someone who knows you and has been on the journey with you to say to you like, everything is okay. You did not get this far to only get this far. And yeah, I cannot wait to watch your workshop, because I will not be able to join live because that is when I'm putting my kid down to bed at that time of the day. But I can't wait to watch it because I think I'm going to get so much from hearing all of the different ideas you've got for the expansion bit. And just to know that we're not alone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And that's why I've been calling it a class and community brainstorm, because it really is this opportunity for us to come together. And I agree. Like, community is how we stay safe, not dollars in the bank, not clinging to the conventions. It's like being with each other. And that was also what pinged for me earlier when you were like, my clients could coach with AI, but my clients like want the space that I'm in. And I was thinking too, people could go to AI to actually, honestly, you can go to AI and have it like summarize the key points of Off the Grid podcast for you. I've tested this out and it's not bad. Instead of listening to 100 episodes of the show, you could have AI do whatever for you. But like, it's like, oh, but you know what AI can't do? It can't read your email in my inbox, get excited about what you're up to and pop it in the next Off the Grid email that goes out to 2,000 people. It can't do that. There's no reciprocity. And that's the community piece. That is like what transforms it.
And it can't make you feel how it feels to just hear you talk. Like, even if just reading the transcript of a podcast does not make me feel, and obviously there's an ableist version of this because not everyone can listen to a podcast, but for me as someone who does, have the ability to do that, just hearing you talk and hearing you bounce off your guest, that is the thing that makes me feel more connected to the human experience of running a business. And I think, is the world going to rapidly change? Yes. Like, AI is going to change everything. But I am unwilling to become someone who relies on a robot and an artificial intelligence to tell me how to be a human being. And maybe I'll be left, maybe that will be the end of my working career by refusing to do that. But I'm just like, no, I don't want AI to write my emails for me. Why would I need it to do that? The whole point is for me to write something. I don't need it to even, when people say like use it as a thought partner, and I'm like, why? That's what my brain is for. I don't understand. And maybe there's some people listening to this being like, you don't, and I don't understand. And I have a very strong line in the sand that I'm not using this from an environmental perspective, like in an ethics perspective. But I'm just like, you know what? I think there's other people like me too who want a real coach and not a chatbot coach. And I think there's people who want, or even a real podcast editor, because there's a storytelling element to it that Descript cannot do. Descript cannot pull out the human element of it and tell the story and think thoughtfully and creatively about sound design and all that good stuff. I have to trust that there's still space for us in our work, because if not, what the hell are we going to do with our lives? Really, what's left? What's left with jobs? Like, what are we going to do?
And this is just a beautiful example of what you said earlier, right? Like, yes, we have to stretch ourselves. We don't have to compromise the things that are most important to us. And so AI is one of those lines for you. Social media is one of those lines for me. There may be somebody listening who's like, oh, hell yeah, I am building a chatbot for my program. That is going to be the best thing in the whole world. And cool. Like, we each have our own paths here.
And also, I'm being a hypocrite because any parents listening who are in Dr. Becky's Good Inside program, she has a 10 out of 10 chatbot that actually really helps me as a parent. So I'm lying. I have used that as some form of AI. I'm lying. Please forgive me.
Oh, so true. There's always spaces that we're making compromises, but the things we're not going to lead with, right? You're not going to actually build this. You're not going to ask other people to use it for you. So, well, Jen, this conversation has healed something in me. I am so grateful for you. I'm so glad you replied to an email and were like, do you want to talk about this? And then I was like, yeah, we'll do 30 minutes. And then now, like 75 minutes later, I'm super excited that listeners got this sort of bonus episode to pop in before we have class. So if you're still tuned in, I would love if you came to my class. I'd love to see you on May 28th or have you watch the recording. I would also love if you headed to the show notes to learn more about Jen's work. Maybe you join the Messy Middle. Maybe you get on the wait list for your Simple and Spacious business.
Something I've made recently that is free. If anyone's listened to this, it's nothing to do with what we've talked about, but I'm so proud of it. So I'm going to share it if that is okay. I made this toolkit called Design Your Part-Time Business Model. My kind of speciality is like bringing more ease, more freedom, more spaciousness into your business without compromising on financial stability. So if you want to check out my work, it's completely free. It's videos, toolkits to work through. I think that's the best place to enter my work if you want to kind of come at it from that framework. But yeah, more than anything, just anyone listening to this, you're not alone. And we're all in it together. And yeah, fingers crossed the world still exists a year from now, as we all know it. Fingers crossed.
Yes, fingers crossed it still exists and that we get to do this again in 6 or 12 or 18 or 24 months. Well, thank you again, Jen, for being here. Thank you again, listeners, for tuning in. And until next time, we will see you off the grid.
Thanks for listening to Off the Grid. Don't forget to grab your free Leaving Social Media toolkit at offthegrid.fun/toolkit. This podcast is a Softer Sounds production. Our music is by Melissa Caitlin Carter of Making Audio Magic, and our logo is by Natelier Studio. I'm your host, Amelia Ruby, and until next time, I'll see you off the grid and on the interweb.
Let's go off the grid. Okay. Let's go off the grid. Okay. I know that you really want to put your phone away. Yeah. Let's